And for more on this new chapter in the Russian invasion, I'm joined tonight by Bradley Bowman. Brad is a U.S. Army officer and Black Hawk pilot and senior director at the Center on Military and Political Power in Washington, D.C. He's also a former national security advisor to the U.S. Senate. It's good to have you back on the show, Brad. We've got a lot that's going on right now. Russia's offensive to take control of eastern Ukraine, it's now underway. Here is how the Pentagon is describing it. Let's take a listen, and then I'd like to get your reaction.
Just over the last several days, you can continue to see the Russians are doing what we call shaping. They're trying to set the conditions for more aggressive, more overt, and larger ground maneuvers in the Donbass. But again, I would remind, this is an area of the country that has seen fighting over the last 8 years. This is a terrain that both sides understand and know.
What are your thoughts, Brad? I mean, is this a new offensive where both sides have equal chances, if you will?
Thanks for the opportunity to join you again. It's good to see you again, and thanks for the question. You know, I think what we've seen over the last week or two is obviously the withdrawal of Russian forces from around Kyiv after that defeat there, frankly. And we've seen kind of the refitting and the resupplying as best they can, as quickly as they can, and the concentration of those forces in the Donbass. So we see a huge quantity of Russian forces, combined arms forces. By that I mean artillery, armor, and other combat elements converging on a smaller region with the goal, frankly, of taking the parts of Donetsk and Luhansk that the Russians hadn't already controlled, so that Putin, perhaps by early next month when they celebrate a major historical anniversary, might be able to claim that Russian forces control all of the Donbass. Of course, standing between Putin and that goal are Ukrainian forces that have been fighting in those very locations for 8 years. Many of them are dug in. The Ukrainians are bringing reinforcements themselves, and they're also getting tons and tons of weapons from the United States and their European allies, including a shipment of howitzers, 18 howitzers, which are going to be kind of the bread and butter of this coming fight that we're going to see. It's going to be largely an artillery conflict, and the side that can maintain fire superiority may win. So it really is a race to reinforce the respective sides, and this could be a decisive fight that we're seeing in the coming days and weeks.
Yeah, Ukraine's ability to repel Russian forces for almost 2 months now. I mean, how important have weapons from the U.S. and the West been for Ukraine's ability to survive?
You know, when I look at what's happened on the battlefield, there's been some things that have been predictable, and there's been a lot of surprises, if we're being honest. I cite really three primary things. First is, my review of history and also these more recent events is you never underestimate the will, determination, and ability of a free people defending their homes. We've just seen that throughout history. And once again, the Ukrainians have put that on full display. And that can overcome all kinds of advantages in the camp of the adversary. So one, I give the Ukrainians great credit. Two, I would say the provision of weapons, particularly the Javelin weapons, the anti-tank weapons, the Stinger anti-aircraft missiles, some European equivalents of those, have been absolutely decisive. And the way the Ukrainians have employed those weapons, right? Having the weapons is one thing, but how you employ them with your tactics, your operations, your operational concepts, they've been incredibly agile at using, frankly, their non-commissioned officer corps, which the U.S. helped them develop since the 1990s. A lot of you viewers may not know the California National Guard has had a relationship with Ukraine since the 1990s, helping them, among other things, build their NCO corps. And then the third thing that I would say is just surprising deficiencies on part of the Russians related to logistics, sustainment, and combined arms, the ability to integrate air, land, and sea forces to achieve combined arms effects. They haven't been able to do that very effectively up till now. It's going to be interesting to see whether in a matter of weeks, with a new general here, a new general there, they're suddenly going to be able to do that. If they can't, then I think they're going to continue to have a hard time against the Ukrainian people defending their homes.
Yeah, we've seen the Ukrainians, use the Switchblade suicide drones fairly effectively in urban areas. And I'm wondering if that will continue to be so. What happens if and when Russian forces are able to take this fight to the broad and flat plains of eastern Ukraine?
Yeah, for Americans, I've been in Kyiv. I've never been in the Donbass, but as I understand it, for Americans, it's a bit like Kansas is the topography. So exactly in the Donbass region, much more open, and that's why the artillery fires, right? Cover and concealment is limited, right? The ability to protect yourself from being seen or hit is limited, and so it's about maneuver and firepower, frankly, and that's why I was emphasizing artillery a moment ago. You mentioned the Switchblade drones; those are very effective and helpful in urban warfare. Of course, there are two different variants of the Switchblade drones with different size warheads, but the point stands nonetheless. They help with intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, and then, as you suggested, they can become a kamikaze drone that actually goes out and takes out the target. But the size of target they can take out on depends on which of the two variants you're looking at. But the bottom line is, the Ukrainians have high morale. They have incredible support coming from the U.S. But let's remember, Ukraine's industrial sector is the war zone. So Russia's being hit by the sanctions, so they're going to have a hard time reinforcing their forces over the long term. But Ukraine's defense industrial base, a lot of it's being destroyed. And if you see the Russians take Mariupol in the next few days, then that will free up roughly 10 or 11 battalion tactical groups, which will then be able to converge on the Donbass as well or be used elsewhere. And so there is a connection between what we're seeing in Mariupol and the Donbass. And if I can, real quickly, Brent, on Mariupol, we know Putin's goal is to establish a land bridge from Russia to Crimea.
That's
he
right.
essentially already has that, but he has the city of Mariupol on that axis. And he has two goals. Either wants it to replace the Ukrainians there with Russians, if you will, or to destroy it. And he seems to be going with option number two. And by destroying, I mean literally destroying Mariupol, he will establish an unimpeded land bridge between Russia and Crimea.